episode number 23. Brad, you are rocking a sweet, sweet hat. Tell us a little bit about it, my man.
Oh, it's just a jackalope hat, casual jackalope hat from Mint. So thanks to the guys over at Mint for sending that over. Love my jackalope. What can I say? I'm bagging 2 of them now. Big fan. Love the hat as well. Just as good as the disc.
Dude, absolutely incredible. And you got that flippy apparel. It's fun. The further we go with this show, I think we're introducing ourselves not only to more discs and obviously more people as we continue to bring on guests, but also like brands. I'm just saying, like, if you're a disc manufacturer or something like that, and you're like, man, I think that we have the best blank. And I mean, what do we say here about if it's good, Brad?
Keep it in the bag or on your head. Yeah, that works too.
Yeah, right. So I'm just like, I'm not trying to throw out free sponsorship here, but I will say we want to give people the best disc possible. Like, that's the heart of this show. So if you got good discs, let us know, because obviously myself and Brad, we've not tried everything out there.
Mm-hmm. That's the truth. So today's episode is going to be interesting. We're going to be doing my favorite thing, which is forehands. That's sarcasm. If you can't, hey, it's coming a long way. I'm feeling more comfortable, but still, it's still just an area that I really need to work on, and it's just a little painful sometimes because I know the potential, just not there yet. So this is almost a throwback to kind of episode 1, actually, with Jason. Shout out Jason. We're going to be throwing some overstable fairways here. And kind of helping, this bag's very similar to what Jason's was when we reviewed his bag on episode number 1. So it'll be interesting to see, same advice, but different. I'm a different thrower now. It'll be just very interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah. And there's a forehand skill that we're going to focus on a lot that we picked up in episode 2, I want to say, is where we introduced it. And I can't wait to hear, Brad's reaction to like the idea of what we're going to, It's, guys, we're just not even going to spoil it anymore. Let's go ahead and bring in our guest and dive in, shall we?
Yep, let's do it.
Come on. Welcome to In the Bag. Zach, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. Finishing up work, so feeling good.
Come on,
Nice.
Come on. Another work day done. Always a good time. It's a pleasure, Brad, that we get to consider this like part of the workday, right?
Yeah. I threw discs for part of my workday. That's pretty cool. So
yeah. One day. As the sport grows, I think the cool part is like we all get to see this back in the day. It almost reminds me of like, I don't know, Zach, if you have any kids or not, but like when my parents would tell me like, hey, you can't play video games for a living. And I was always like, yeah, I guess that's true. But now, like, if your kid tells you that, you realize, oh, that's like $1 million career.
Yeah.
So yeah, like one day as the sport grows, more people will get to do this for a living, and I am pumped for that reality.
Same.
So, Zach, we want to get to know you and your game, man, and just want to say thanks for coming on. But we have a couple normal questions we ask. The first being, how long have you been playing disc golf?
I have been playing since 2018. It was the first time my wife and I got out there with some Innova starter packs. Horrible form, chucking discs left and right all over the place. Had a great time. In 2019 is when I started playing like every week, every other week with some friends. So 2019 was when I got like more into it. So.
Okay. Awesome. And this will be a little bit of a spoiler as we get to your bag. What I find interesting is you started with the Innova and there's currently no Innova in the bag.
Yeah.
So definitely want to be highlighting that for sure. Okay, fantastic. Want to know your distances. Let's talk about your like actual playing game. We set you up with a backhand. How far are you throwing golf distance? Like, hey, the hole is this far away. I feel like I can reach it.
Golf distance backhand, I'm pretty comfortable in like the 315 to 330. Every once in a while I can get that jet that's in my bag out to like 350 on a really good day. Okay. But most of the time that like 315 to 330.
Totally fair. Yeah. And then talking about forehand.
Forehand is like, I don't know, man, 60 to 90 feet, depending on how my wrist rolls. I'm naturally left-handed, but I learned how to play disc golf right-handed. And so my right hand has no concept of a throwing motion. I've taught it so that I can do lean out forehands to scramble out of trouble. But that's the amount of forehand I have, is just that.
Okay, that's fascinating. So I'm with you. As people don't often, unless you like spend time with me in person, you may not know this, but I am a similar way. I am naturally left-handed, but I do sports right-handed for some reason. Unless it's like, I always describe it if it's a utensil or like a fine object or something, left-handed. Like if I'm eating using like a fork or something, oh, lefty all the way, baby. But for some reason, yeah, like. So I get you. So we're going to be talking about that forehand a lot today because it's definitely something we want to help add to your game. And looking at your bag, there's a couple different routes we can take to get there.
Cool.
So we want to help you in that aspect of your game. Let's talk about your short game, though. We get to putting. We set you up with 10 putters at 15 feet, 10 putters at 25, and 10 putters at 40 feet. How many are you making from each?
At 15 feet, I'd love to say 10, but it's truly probably like 9.5. Because there's always like the first one where you're not warmed up and you just clank it off the cage or something, or the last one where you're feeling too confident, so you sail it. There's always that one, so I'll say 9.
Yeah, totally fair.
25 feet, 5 or 6 pretty comfortably. That's something I've been working on, so that number used to be 3 and now it's gone up to 5, so that's feeling okay. From 40 feet, some days it's 1 or 2, and some days it's like 6. Just if I'm feeling it. I've had some rounds where all of a sudden I'm hitting everything from circle 2 and it doesn't matter, and then other rounds where from circle 2 I'm not even getting close. So,
Hey, totally get that. Totally get that. I mean, that circle 2 game, I think to me, circle 2 is like what separates the intermediate and the advanced players, because circle 1 on a good day, an intermediate player can hang out with like an advanced or a pro player pretty comfortably in circle 1. But yeah, circle 2, when all of a sudden you're like, hey, I draw metal every time from circle 2. To me, that's where you're like, oh, feeling spicy. So that's totally fair. And I respect the vulnerability. I don't know about you, Brad, but for me, it's not putt 1 or putt 10 that I mess up. It's like putt 7. Because I get in the middle of it, and then all of a sudden, like, one gets a little wobbly or something, and then I'm like, oh crap, okay, I gotta like dial it in for the last 3.
Yeah, my misses are usually out of 10, probably like between 6 and 8, because I start thinking about it way too much, and I'm like, oh, and then I'm like messing with my angle or whatever, and then I usually, if my miss in that like ballpark, that 25 ballpark, I'm just like going way wide right. I'm not even touching anything. So
That's fair. That's fair. And that's so frustrating too, right? Where you're like, everything seems to be the same, and then all of a sudden you're just like, wah, way off. Yep. And trust me, I use the whack beat like the quack, because as much as I have it in my videos and I've edited my own videos, it haunts me in my dreams. So fantastic. Well, Zach, what would you say is the biggest strength of your game?
This is a recent development, but I would say like accuracy from like 230 in to like approach games and like longer mid-range shots. I feel like I've lost distance in the last year for some reason, but gained accuracy. So kind of a give and take that I'm mostly okay with. So like when I say accuracy, I mean like both hitting gaps and landing where I want to. I've started to get weirdly good at that over the last summer. But like I've probably lost like 25 feet of distance. So
I think I would prefer, if someone asked me, you had to choose one for the next year, would you rather have like pinpoint accuracy on the disc golf course or like throw 450 feet? I think I'd pick accuracy, if I'm being 100% honest.
Yeah, I'm with you. I was going to ask Zach, like the disc golf coach in me is fascinated by that idea. Have you noticed a change in your scoring ability? Like, are you scoring better even with less distance?
Big time. So one of my 2022 goals that I put on my list, I always set goals every year, was to shoot a double digit under round, and I've now shot 3 of them.
Nice.
So
Congratulations.
just a little brag, humble brag.
Brag, he's a baller. Let's just call it what it is.
All right,
Zach
what
is
disc
now
is he
taking over
recommending?
my spot on the show.
He's we flip flopped. He's recommending disc for me today. So.
Sweet.
I love it. Dude, that is awesome, Zach. Super proud of you, man. And 100%, we need to clip that for foundation content and just be like, stop going for distance. Bang. Love it. So your payment's coming later, Zach. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks.
Anyways, let's talk about your bag, man. We're going to be focusing on fairway drivers actually today. So what we want to do is we want to start with your putters and work. We're going to putters, mids, touch on your distance drivers for a second because your distance driver setup, I love the top half of your bag. I'm just going to go ahead and say that. So I love the simplicity of it. You have a very, for a lack of a better word, streamlined bag. So it is in more than one way.
Yep.
Just saying. So let's talk about putters. We'll start with the knot proxy. You have a stabilizer in there.
Yep.
Talk us through the stabilizer. What's it do?
Stabilizer is my go-to approach. I'm throwing that thing a lot from probably a little under 200 and in. I'm throwing that thing. That it's getting a little beat up. I have that one in neutron. So it has some straight flight to it, but it is still an overstable disc. So it consistently fades. I think of it it's like a zone or like a pig or one of those discs, but I feel like it's glidier.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you've ever thrown one, but I know you're a pig guy, so I won't tell you to try it.
Yeah, I would definitely say it's glidier. I have thrown a stabilizer, and I think the thing that some people love about the pig in the zone is the lack of glide. I know a friend who throws a breaker and a zone because the breaker wants to glide, whereas the zone wants to get out of the sky. So I'd be curious about, have you ever thrown a stabilizer in premium plastic?
I have. Yeah, I had my wife actually stole it. I had an Eclipse stabilizer that was like that special edition one that you can't buy anymore unless you're willing to spend $50 on eBay.
For sure.
And that one was a little more overstable, but when it got beat in, I gave it to her. And so now that's her overstable approach disc. So
nice. Did you feel like it had as much glide as your neutron one?
Not quite. Once the level of beat in it is now, it probably has the same amount of glide. But when it started, it didn't.
Yeah, that's definitely I feel like the base plastics want to stay up in the air for sure. That's where an R Pro pig definitely glides more than the Ricky Glow pigs kind of a deal. So totally get that. I love it. And I love that you're using it for primary approaches. Most reliable shot in the game is a hyzer. Based on our conversation about weaknesses in your game, aka your forehand, I'm guessing you don't forehand it unless break glass.
When I have to struggle, that's if I am trapped on the left side of the fairway and I have no other options, that is the disc I will forehand.
Okay.
Or I'll forehand the Tesla is the other one.
Okay. Awesome. Cool. So let's move on. You're putting with, I'm guessing, the electron proxies and throwing a plasma?
Yep.
Okay. Does your plasma, describe the flight and what you get the plasma proxy to do?
Sure. The plasma proxy is surprisingly overstable. I know with MVP and Axiom, the plasma plastic in their lower speeds is more overstable, but then I feel like in their higher speeds, it's less overstable. Kind of a weird thing, but so it is less overstable than my stabilizer because I can get it to turn and hold a turn, but it never flips all the way over. If that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I think the only suggestion really that I would make because of that flight of that proxy, I was very curious about that. The only suggestion I would make to your putters is if you have an electron proxy that you've putted with a ton that just feels like it's not reliable anymore, or a backup or something like that. I might suggest working one in the bag as a throwing putter. So you have that like understable option without having to move up to like the uplink or something like that. Just as since you're already used to throwing your one proxy, it's not like it would be a weird shift. And if you could have one mold cover your putting putter and two of your throwing putters, bro, talk about the scoring like comfort in your hand. That'd be crazy. Like if pigs were a good putting putter, gosh, I'd get rid of my daggers in a second. But tragically, they're not. They're not that good at the disc. So, okay, Brad, he bags an uplink. Let's move on to the mids. What questions?
I love the uplink. No, so I noticed you have a Buzz SS, in that middle slot, and then your reactor. You have two reactors. So I'm going to guess one reactor is more overstable than the other one, and that's kind of covering that more overstable slot in your mid-range game, because you have quite a big gap on the left side of this graph as we really up until we get to the Tesla.
Yeah. The neutron reactor is quite a bit more overstable than the other one. The fission reactor I bought to replace the Buzz SS. So MVP and Discraft are both Michigan brands, and I'm from Michigan. Okay. I wanted to be loyal to one of the Michigan brands and decided not to choose Discraft, not for any particular reason, just for simplicity's sake. But the fission reactor I got is, I think, a little heavy, so it is still pretty overstable. And so I'm kind of just trying to beat that in until it becomes straighter and can cover that slot of the Buzz SS. But because it's an MVP disc in a premium plastic, it will be beat in like, 10 years or so.
Right. Well, hey, I just got off the plane from Ypsilanti last night, so I was just up there. It's beautiful right now. Yes. So have you tried the Hex?
I had a Hex in my bag for a while that I had gotten like just a little beat in and was that perfect straight one. And we were at a course and I threw it straight into a pond. And when I went to try to replace it with a new Hex, the new Hex was the same flight as my reactor. And then so the Buzz SS is actually the Wasp tooled one that came with the Great Lakes Open spectator pack. And so that one wasn't one I bought. That was gifted to me. And I was like, I'm probably not going to throw this. And then I tried it and I was like, well, I'm going to throw this in every round.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that's great. As long as I definitely, it seems like it's covering your like very straight mid-range game, and not to jump up to the distance drivers and stuff, Robbie, unless you have other questions. But it's funny, like I look at like your bag, and it was very similar to my bag even like 4 months ago, which is like you have like your putters and your throwing putters, and like your mid ranges, and then there's like this huge gap until you get up to like the 10, 11 speed discs, because I was very uncomfortable with like the fairways, because I'm kind of like, well, I'm getting the same distance as I am with like these distance drivers. I don't really get the point. The rims are a little smaller. Why do I even need these in my bag? So I noticed you just really have the drift there in that section. Is this how you're feeling, or do you feel differently about it?
I use the Virus and the Tesla I use as fairway drivers. Those for their slots don't go quite as far as the Trace or the Jet.
And I guess I should probably preface like that 7-speed area, like it's like not quite a mid-range, not quite a fairway driver, like that 7-8 speed range. Like I didn't carry anything in that range at all, even 4 months ago. Now I feel like I'm relying heavily on like that between 9 and 7 speed area, and I've almost taken all that top speed out of my bag completely. So I just wondered if you kind of felt the same way, because that's how I was feeling. I felt like in this awkward place where like my mids are doing what I want them to. These distance drivers are kind of doing what I want them to. Why do I need these 7-8 speed discs?
So I'm weird, and I like the challenge of building a bag from one company just for the challenge of it. So this is my second single manufacturer bag. The first one was a Latitude 64 bag. And I had only 7 and 9 speeds. I had no distance drivers from Latitude in there. and I was getting them just as far as any distance driver I tried. But since switching over and building this MVP bag, I'm getting the 11 speeds farther than the 7 and 9 speeds, but I'm not noticing a difference between the 7s and the 9 speeds, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So the Buzz SS is kind of hanging on because you haven't found your gyro equivalent or gyro made equivalent that fills that slot.
Yeah, pretty much.
So a disc that I have recently discovered that like I would suggest trying out is, so the fission plastic is like notably straighter, right? One of the two arguments for it are it's straighter, and also if you get it in a lighter weight, it's easier to throw, but it still holds true to some of the flight characteristics. And Brad mentioned it, but they just released the Hex in fission plastic. And I had Hunter throw a Hex all over my face at Creators Cup and was like, that is a cheater disc that you can throw that thing 400, Hunter. Like, get out of here, bro. So I had waited, and I recently put a fission Hex in my bag, and it fills that the slot you're talking about exactly, but I got it in a lighter weight.
Okay.
So I found one in like the 160s. I think mine's 166. So I would look at one in like the light 160s, like around 160, 161. And I'd be willing to bet that the fission Hex would replace that Buzz SS almost instantaneously. I think that's my only argument against the uplink is like, it's such a good disc, but it doesn't like, I wish it came in a like an Eclipse uplink would be nuts. Like
so good.
Gyro, if you're listening, why does that disc not exist yet, bro? Like seriously, this podcast alone, we'd sell like 1,000 of them. So just saying, until that exists, because I know the gyro nerds are listening, I would try the fission Hex. It's a great thrower, and out of the bag for me, I was like, junk. I don't have to throw my evaders anymore because this goes just as far and it's so much easier. Okay. Bummer. Because I like that disc. So, love that. Let's dive into, okay. So you said you use your Virus and your Tesla as fairway drivers.
Yeah.
You didn't mention your lift.
So
is the lift still in the bag?
The lift comes in and out when I'm mad at it, and then when I miss it. So the lift is a very special disc for me because it's my first ever ace disc.
Okay.
And it's actually my only ace. Yeah.
And it's still in the bag?
It comes in and out. Sometimes it's like really good because it just will like flip up and hold straight and then fade a little bit. The flight numbers for the lift and the drift that Streamline puts on the disc are super not correct, which flight numbers are arbitrary.
Yeah.
And so the lift, yeah, I'm looking at it right now. It's hanging on the wall. It's out of the bag right now because I'm trying to get comfortable with the drift as a replacement for it.
Okay.
But the drift weirdly is more overstable. The one that I have, which again, because of the flight numbers doesn't make any sense. So it freaks me out every time I throw it, but
yeah, that's fascinating. So options I would consider, I'm going to go straight to the hat that Brad's wearing. I know you're like locked into a company. I don't know how you feel about manufactured by your company. So Mint, obviously, same plastic as MVP. So the Jackalope, I think, could be a really solid option in that slot for you to consider.
I feel like
Probably
I've heard
the
you guys.
Apex plastic.
Not Apex. Okay. I've heard you guys talk about the Jackalope with a couple people, and I've been like, that might be something I need to look into buying.
Yeah.
So.
It's the Eternal plastic is more stable for sure, but the Apex is money. It's like I would consider it like Neutron-ish.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So definitely check out the Jackalope for sure. You have two traces. The Jet, I can imagine, is like your max distance thrower.
Yep.
Like you said it. It's like you get a hold of it, 350. Probably the flippiest, one of the flippier discs, not as flippy as the Virus, but like pretty flippy.
So I got the jet I have is in Proton. I had one in Neutron, that I really missed that disc. I died a Squirtle on it. It was really cool. Threw it into a bush and never found it.
Best starter for sure.
Yeah. Every
Disagree.
time.
Continue.
Squirtle every time. And
Brad's a Charmander guy. He hates us.
Oh, I have a zone with a Charmander on it. That's just double evil for Robbie. Continue.
Classic.
We won't even go there.
Dude got blasted by Gary Squirtle too many times. He's not. It's not a scar.
So the Neutron jet was, as you're saying, like the flippiest disc in my bag, maybe second only to the uplink. But this Proton one, I would just call it straight.
Okay.
So it will turn, but it has it fades every time consistently.
Interesting. Okay.
So I've been really debating on getting another Neutron jet to cover that really flippy distance driver.
Okay. So let's say you really get a hold of that jet. Is that when you see the 350 is you get an intense amount of turn out of it and then it's just barely fading at the end?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So if you think that getting a Neutron jet would add that variety to it, what are the two traces doing in different plastics for you that you're like, I would rather, like currently you've chosen to have the two traces versus two jets. Why is that?
So the plasma jet is my go-to overstable distance driver, because I can get it up to speed so it will hold straight. It never turns, but it will hold straight before it fades really consistently. So I'll throw that when it's windy. I'll throw that if I need to for sure get left and I don't want to be right. The Proton jet, I actually want to show this to you. I died. So I tried to do the Simon die. Didn't do it the right way. And so what happened is I think the heat and the amount of dye I put on this, I don't know if you can see that in the camera, but it is warped.
Oh.
And so it is the most overstable disc I've ever thrown. And so that is just a utility disc. Like, just if I need a big skip shot, if I need to just get over something or around something, that's what I use that for.
Huh. Okay. That is fascinating to me. The people in the comments are going to have to do some scientific research or backing for that, because
yes, please.
I've never heard of a die like turning it more overstable, but perhaps the warping for sure did it, because I've warped the crap out of some discs before and they become flippier. But like I could see warping on a distance driver doing that, especially if it bowed it up a little bit, like or like puddle topped it even. I think that could do it for sure. So that actually helps answer the question a little bit. If that trace is not flying true to the flight numbers at all. Like it is like a 0304 kind of a deal.
For sure.
Okay. Awesome. So that's good to know when we dive into fairways. So talk to me. We're going to be talking about the stable side of your bag. Virus, a more reliable and longer uplink for you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And then talk to me about the Tesla. What's the Tesla do for you?
The Tesla, I don't have the best relationship with, if that makes sense. It's very overstable. It's in Proton. So I don't know if people say Proton or Eclipse is their most overstable plastic, but so the Tesla's really overstable. And so that's anything that is not quite far enough where I should throw my trace, or if I need a little more control than my trace to get a straight flight, I'll throw the Tesla, because I can get it to hold straight, but it fades hard and gets a big skip and goes really far left.
So once it's done flying, it is
it's really done flying.
Okay. Interesting. So would you put it like in terms of stability, would you put it between your two traces?
I'd probably put it as about the same as the plasma.
Okay. Which is
That
the
makes sense.
straighter one.
Yeah,
The
so
more
it'll,
usable one.
Yeah, it'll hold straight, but then fade really hard.
Okay. Cool. Well, the disc we're going to suggest, I still think it's going to be a good complement to what you have. So when I'm looking at your chart, I'm seeing the dyed trace could be like the major wind fighter for you. But even then you're stepping up to a bigger rim, faster rim. There's just a lot of like struggle in that in itself. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to look at like an overstable fairway option for you that's honestly really overstable for two reasons. One, your bag tends to drift towards the understable side, so it's okay to have that overstable complement in there. And then the other thing is I wanted to start preparing you for a forehand. Now, Brad has journeyed with me for 23 weeks and me testing his game every week, his patience every week. And so normally this is the part of the show where we throw it to Brad and Brad tells us his journey. But viewers, we want to try something different today. We're going to do a little interview style. I'm going to ask Brad some questions because usually I just like, Brad, tell him how I like normally send you out to the field.
Yeah, so typically it's like Monday night, Tuesday morning, Robbie's like, hey, we are doing this week. And he'll usually tell me like a category, and he'll say, give me like 3 or 4 discs just to make sure we have them in the warehouse. And I'll tell him what we have, and then we'll pick 2 discs to go out and throw. I don't see your chart, my disc chart. I don't see that. I don't even really know what the problem or thing we're trying to solve is. He's just like, hey, go through it. And then sometimes he'll say, hey, like today he said, make sure you throw a bunch of forehands, focus on your forehand, throw backhand, but do your forehands. So that's typical day. And I do it an hour or 2 before this podcast. So
he's coming in real fresh. The wound or the excitement, very real. You're getting the raw emotion here, guys. And we really, like, I'll be real, we don't even really talk about it that much before we go live because I want to be able to experience the reaction with you as the listeners. So, Brad, I had you go, what disc did we go try today?
All right, so we tried Big Z Predator here. And then we tried the Neutron Fireball as well. So those are the 2 discs we tried today.
Which I didn't even plan on leaning into the whole Michigan-made thing, but it worked.
It worked out.
Here we go. Go
Good
Big
job.
Blue. Or go Spartans, whichever side you land on.
Go Blue.
Okay, yeah. I lived in Novi, Michigan for 3 years. So right about here.
Yep.
But...
I'm from Ohio, so you know how I feel about this already. Continue.
Yeah. Ooh, rough. So I had you go out and try the discs. Talk to me about hand feel between the two, because there's something about that disc craft that I think is unique that you mentioned.
Yeah, so, I mean, as we know, like, I love the Vulture, and Vultures and Predators are pretty similar. However, like, there's this, people watching, you can see, there's like this definite like a bead or micro bead on the bottom. It's a little rough. So like at first I was like, I don't love this. But the thing that I love about this for forehand, you probably can't see it on camera, but there's some cross hatching. There's a whole patch of cross hatching on the inner rim here. And on any of my Discraft discs that I forehand, I always look for the embossing because I like my fingers, because I use like this weird power grip. And I love how my fingers feel on that. It gives me I feel like it gives me a little extra grip. So I love that feature. Don't super love the micro bead just because it's a little rough on the end. As far as the Fireball, it's like very, very flat. You can see it's a little gummy where it's Neutron. So although like you can see it's pretty small for my hand and my fingers, but it's very comfortable. Like I like the gumminess, and I like that it's flat. It's really easy to grip. So, I mean, if I had to give a winner to the feel portion, probably the Predator, just because I love that cross hatching on the inside. Although the fireball did feel great too.
I don't know with when you've like thrown discraft before, Zach, if you feel the same way, but I was not a believer in the whole like find the embossing and throw the embossing. But as some discraft has snuck its way into my bag, absolutely have jumped on that train, which is why I think the Athena bummed me out.
Yep.
Because it's not there. There is, so I like picked it up like, here we go, I'm Paul McBeth. And then I just couldn't find it. So bummer, discraft.
Yeah.
Your prototype driver.
Weird.
What are you doing? So Predator gets a point there. You went out to the field. Primarily, we're focusing on forehands. So talk to us about backhands real fast, like differences you saw in the backhands.
Basically, I'm not throwing these super far. They're both pretty overstable. If I'm throwing just flat, the fireball just wants to go left, like immediately out of my hand. Again, it's something I'm working on. I have a natural anhyzer release. I thought it was a hyzer. It's not. I have a natural anhyzer release, so I'm really trying to hit these flat, and the fireball just wanted to go left. The Predator flew very much like my Vulture, just a little bit more overstable. It does want to go straight for a while for me, and then dump at the end pretty aggressively. So, I was throwing them both around like honestly, 250, 275 range. That's about how far I could get those to go on backhand.
Yeah, and Brad, you've got pretty similar backhand distance as Zach, right? Like 310,
350. If I was saying my average, if I'm throwing my era, like I'm going to hit that like 325 mark pretty accurately. I'm confident if there's like a 325 foot hole, I know I'm going to get to that hole with my 11 speed. That's like kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so I think definitely some reliability there, because if you're stepping up to a 250, 270 foot hole, Zach, and you've got to get hard left, are you like trying to put the Tesla on some hyzer or come off the trace a little bit? Like, what are you throwing there?
I'm probably throwing the Tesla on some hyzer. And
cool. So this would definitely give you some flexibility on that, of like not having, I don't know if do you have like a natural hyzer release, or are you pretty flat thrower, or
pretty natural hyzer?
Okay. So this, I honestly, as a natural hyzer guy myself, I love having super overstable stuff, because then if I want to test out that flat release, like it still gives me a similar feel. And you can spike hyzer these overstable ones super easy, like lean into it and go like start the lawnmower pull. Oh, so good. Yeah. So I think that's definitely notable. Brad, then all the joy left because we stopped throwing backhands and we started throwing forehands. So walk us through that journey.
No, I think, I just knew I was going to be throwing a lot of forehands, so I just kind of leaned into it. And I know I've thrown both of these like once or twice here or there, so I kind of know like they're going to be very overstable. So I was feeling okay. Flat forehand, they're not going super far for me. I do have a natural hyzer release on my forehand. So, both of these are going to like really take that hyzer. So if I got it flat, the Predator kind of do the same thing as it did on backhand, which is go very straight and then dump to the right pretty hard. Fireball just looked like a C, just like came out of my hand and came straight to the right for my forehand. Those are going like 200 in that 200 ballpark for me on flat. The thing I do like about the Fireball, which is something I really like about my Vulture, is this Fireball wants to skip on the ground. It wants to give a nice flare skip. So again, if we're looking at the utility of it and multiple uses for the same disc, like the Fireball definitely skipped. The Predator, although much like a Vulture, it does not skip in the same way that my Vultures do. So I will say that. Forehand hyzer, we can probably guess what that did. It was like just straight, just beefcake into the ground. No big deal. 150, 165, like nothing past that for me. I was even, again, good utility shot. The football field I practice in, I threw it like past the uprights several times into the parking lot. So I was like, hey, I want to see if I can do this. So I would like aim very left of the uprights and try to bank it back into the field around the net, which I did several times. So again, that's definitely a use for that shot, and the overstability there is to definitely go around something and go right. Forehand anhyzer was really the fun one, though. I put that, and again, sorry for a lot of like, hey, you got to watch this on YouTube sort of thing, but visually, I'm throwing this like not tomahawk level, but like I don't know what angle this is per se, but
78 degrees.
78.3 degrees typically.
I was going to go 0.6, but I mean that's fine.
Yeah, to each their own, right? It's like almost baseball throw. It was kind of fun throwing these. I mean, I could like only throw so many before I like ripped my shoulder out of socket. But I was trying to chuck these hard at that angle, and they would always fight out, and it was fun to watch the flex. I mean, the Fireball fought out of it harder because I just think it's just more overstable. But the Predator, if I took that full flex line, that full flight, I mean, I was throwing like 255, 260 with the Predator on that line. Again, not something I would like say, hey, I'm going to do this in my game every round I play. But for that utility shot and just knowing I can do that shot if I'm trying to like pitch out of the woods if I'm out of trouble, but I need to go right again, like, and just throw almost straight up and down to hit a gap, I could do that with both of these discs. So that was a very interesting throw for me, Robbie.
Yeah. I think what's fascinating about that exact shot to me is, Zach, when we talked earlier about like you're pinched off on the left side of the fairway, you're either throwing your stabilizer or maybe your Tesla on a forehand there. Mm-hmm. But if you threw both of those discs on that like 78.6 degree, like maybe a 78.3 is probably working, but like 78.6, oh, we've gone too far. Mm-hmm. And like it's not going to fight out. It's just going to cut roll. And especially, it sounds like you said you're rolling your wrist, like you're rolling your wrist, so you're getting it over on it. These discs,
not going to matter. Yeah,
like it's going to fight, especially if you go high with it, which is a fantastic shot to have. So when I like working at a local shop, if I were working at the Foundation Disc Store, the same thing would happen. People would walk in and they'll be like, I need a forehand disc. And I think the common answer would be to give them something like this, that like you can just jam on, throw it like a baseball, however. But Brad, in episode 2, we introduced you to a new disc to forehands, and that was the Uplink, right?
Oh, yeah. That was episode 2, wasn't it?
Yeah, way back in the day, like several years ago, it feels like.
Yeah.
So you have an Uplink in your bag, Zach, and this is really why I wanted to like recommend this disc here. Because you have your Uplink, and like you said, your Virus is just a longer, more reliable Uplink. So I had Brad, while he was in the field, he didn't try a Virus. He threw a Valkyrie, which is like a beat-in Valkyrie, similar stability. Yeah. But I had him throw it on hyzer flips for a forehand.
Yeah.
So talk to me about hyzer flip forehand with the Valkyrie versus flex forehand with the Fireball and Predator.
Yeah. First of all, it took like 2/3 the power to get 50 feet more distance. That's the biggest thing. I felt like I could be more smooth. I'm not trying to like aggressively like hit something as hard as I can at a weird angle. Yeah, like tomahawk, like it was just much more smooth. Like I didn't have to like it's definitely touchy. So I mean, if I did try to hammer it, it would flip on me, and then we're back to square one. But if I just like focused, gave it a nice hyzer release, put just about 70% power into it, nothing crazy, it would flip up flat. It even turned a little bit and then come back to straight, which was really nice. It gave me a lot of like 50 feet more distance. Like I was approaching that like 300 mark with a forehand, which feels really good, being that someone who didn't really have one 4 months ago. So for me personally, if I'm trying to like, if I'm recommending discs at the store for forehands, like especially beginners, I'm giving them like an understable disc, because I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Robbie, like a lot of people will come in and like they're trying to chop it the other way. They're trying to hyzer release everything and get their power from that motion. So that seems to let them cheat a little bit, let them flip up and kind of learn how to throw a nice easy forehand to get good form. And then they can start throwing wild shots like this with other forehands.
Yeah. So you already have that disc in your bag, Zach. So here's my challenge to you with this option. So this is like, hey, I want to learn Japanese. So I'm going to buy Rosetta Stone year 1, 2, and 3. You already bought year 1 and 2. We're just giving you year 3 and telling you you can use it for a specific shot. Brad, I think you had mentioned when we talked before, like if you want to throw the hyzer flip forehand, it works, but even minimal experience, you can quickly learn that chop forehand with this disc, right?
Yeah, and I think it gives you both sides of it, right? And definitely, I think when I started being more comfortable with forehands was when they weren't great, but I was throwing overstable discs because I knew they were coming back, so I was less afraid to throw them. Because even today, I was thrown into some headwind with that Valkyrie, and it made it fly completely different. I could still chuck this Fireball and Predator into the wind with that choppy forehand, and I still know what it's going to do. So maybe it'll give you some more confidence to start throwing it, because you definitely can error to the sense of like putting too much hyzer and they're going to crash on you, but you're probably wanting to get right anyway, so why not throw something you know is going to get right?
Yeah. So what I would do is I'm saying take your uplink, take your virus, and you're throwing forehands with that, and you're thinking about drawing just this massive backslash with it and just throwing spike hyzers with your uplink and your virus. And they may only go 60, 90 feet like you're doing right now, but the more you go in a field and you practice that motion of draw that hook, like draw that line, it's going to start going 120 feet, 150 feet, 180 feet. You're going to get that with your uplink and your virus. And then if you're on the course and you're in a jam, that's where you pull out the Fireball, you pull out the virus or the Predator, and you go sick baseball time and just chop. And you're still going to get a similar flight. And eventually you're going to feel comfortable enough, like Brad said, like you're going to build that confidence. And then you're going to bring that uplink or that Fireball a little flatter. And then next thing you know. So which one, does that sound like something you're interested in, Zach?
I mean, having a forehand would make my life a lot easier in a lot of situations. There's been quite a few rounds where I'm playing, because my best friend that I play with the most is mostly forehand. That's his most confident thing. And so when we step up to a hole and he's like, oh, sweet, this is a forehand hole. It is always a little source of a pride when I can do the shot better with a turnover, but it would be a lot easier and more consistent to throw the forehand.
For sure.
I mean, James Conrad won a world championship throwing not a single forehand. So, like, we're not saying you have to have a forehand, but also James Conrad didn't win 2 in a row. He hasn't won 6. The Goose stepped up and threw nothing but forehands, basically, and almost took down Big Beast. So it goes both ways, right? So I definitely think we could put you in that world. So my question to you would be, which sounds more interesting to you, the Predator or the Fireball?
So I'm going to say the Fireball, but not just because of the single brand thing. So I'm the opposite of what you guys were talking about, where the embossing on the inside of the rim, when I hold that, it freaks me out. Like I have to find the blank spots on the rim. So,
Totally fair. Totally fair. Yeah. So the cross hatching could be even more of a problem, especially like without the embossing. No, I get that. What converted me was a rain round. When I played in the rain and all of a sudden like everything was slippery. I was like, yeah, there it is. There's that extra tack. So I completely hear that. So what we'll do is then, Zach, we'll put this Fireball in the mail with you and get this to you. So would you be willing to come back on and tell us your forehand journeys?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Come on. Well, Zach, thank you for hanging out with us this afternoon, man. Really appreciate you coming on. Hopefully it was harmless and you don't hate us or feel like we roasted you back too much.
No, you're good.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to having you on a future episode, man. And in the meantime, hope you have a great rest of your week.
Cool. Thanks.
Oh, man. We are clapping in sync.
Yeah.
Y'all, you don't see this behind the screens, but Brad and I have to do these things to like cue Silas in on edits, and we just dialed it in on our clap to cue Silas. Brad, it's fun to me the more that we do this. I just feel like we've been doing this forever. Kind of a deal.
It's a normal thing now. I look forward to it, and it's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Well, something I look forward to is hearing what's new in the warehouse, my man. So what's new
Yeah.
in the Foundation warehouse?
Oh my. Okay, so we've got a lot of stuff dropping this week. Let's see. Where do I start?
Oh my.
Yeah. So a lot of this comes out on Thursday this week.
Okay.
But Friday you'll get. We're doing this "What's New in a Warehouse" video. I think I said it before, so a lot of it will be mentioned there. Just keep an eye. We have a recently restocked section you can look at on the website now, so that will be where I would live this week because there's a lot of stuff. I mean, let's see, PA5 stock stamp from Prodigy. We have Glow Halloween stamp, Alien stamp, PA3s from Prodigy. We have these I wish I had one to show. We have these beautiful X4s in the Spectrum plastic.
Sick.
I have not seen a disc look like this. They are stunning. Like, I would have a hard time throwing them. They're beautiful. They're beautiful. Let's see. I think that's all from Prodigy. There's something else I'm forgetting, but there's a lot from them. Trilogy is releasing their like match play glow stamps this year. We'll have a bunch of those. There's some stuff coming out in fusion plastic. There's like all kinds of random varieties of Trilogy discs coming out. Castoplast has glow loots, glow stalls, glow. There's one more I'm forgetting, and they also have a signature bird coming out as well this week. So those are releasing. We have Get Freaky Zones live again on the site probably when you're hearing this. I think we're running a sale, I believe, on all the remaining 5-time Paul Macbeth discs because he may not be. We're not going to see 5-time anymore, right? So they're only going to be 6-time after this.
So last year.
Yeah, exactly. Our remaining 5-time discs are going to be up on the site and live. We got Big Z Luna's going up. I think our Clash discs restock is coming in tomorrow, what I'm talking about. So that may be up Friday as well. I mean, there's like discs just pouring into the warehouse right now. So,
dude, that's epic, man. I'm just saying the X4, underrated disc. That disc
Really?
Absolutely smashes. So
yeah,
if you're looking for a distance thrower, and apparently they're beautiful, could be an easy solution.
It's like a compass stamp with like in the Spectrum plastic. They're doing it right with their plastic right now. They are being overlooked. I will say that.
Come up. You could be a future Prodigy if you start throwing Prodigy. So
true.
I'm just saying. Well, Brad, dude, sounds like an awesome week to be checking out FoundationDisc.com. So thank you again to Foundation Disc for making, honestly, and Foundation themselves for making this entire podcast possible.
And I think something awesome. You have something awesome coming out too, right? This week?
We do, yeah. So by the time this episode goes live, my In the Bag will have dropped over on my channel for what has changed since I left Innova. But we have Robbie C patches that can fit. If you got Velcro on your bag, the Pioneer has Velcro on it. Your grip bag has Velcro. I mean, worst case scenario, if you don't have Velcro on your bag, just go to Home Depot and buy Velcro. Hobby Lobby, buy Velcro. And that's sick. It's like, they're not just like they're like rubbery. They're dude. This
beautiful.
It is clean. So you can find those over on Atlas's website, atlasdg.com, dgsupply.com.
Yeah, atlasdgs.com or atlasdiscgolfsupply.com. You can find them over there. You will get $1 off on your patches if you use code in the bag. So.
Bang. I'm just saying. So those patches are absolutely clean. I've gotten so many questions about it, just like subtly chilling on my bag. People have been messaging me because we've been teasing it in past videos. So big thanks to Brad and the team at Atlas for being willing to make that patch. Just crazy to feel the support and love for the community. So thank you guys. And thank you for being willing to support in that way. So,
hey, if it's good,
keep it in the bag, baby.
See you
we'll
next
see you on
week.
the next one.